Thanks for having me and Mara here on Signal at the moment. Thanks for having us here in Full Stack Feminism. It's our honor to be present here and really feel grateful, to have such a great group of people get together, it's difficult, when you talk about tech in this environment that I find so many women, queer, non-binary, so I feel like deeply touched. Okay. So this presentation is prepared by both me and Mara, Karagianni. But since they are not available to travel to here, so I'm also presenting their part as well. So Cecile mentioned our bio, so I don't go into detail, but I just want to say as well, we collaborate on this project, Queering Bash, since last year, because we share interest in code, because we are coders, we are software developers, but also an artist, interest in code and also software studies, as well as wider politics in tech. I think that is really crucial for our background. So this background image is a presentation related to the workshop that we did in March this year as part of Full Stack Feminism here at the University of Sussex. So the workshop was about Bash, right? So Bash is a command line interface and a scripting language developed in the 80s as free software for Unix system. But in general, we see Bash is an interesting research object of study because it relates to computational culture, free and open source software culture, gender issues in tech, and in particular, the role of system administrator in the IT sector. So we will be talking a lot about system administrator, also some technical bits, but also critique politics, and then go into poem, So the workshop introduced Bash in both technical and cultural ways. Then we provide a few examples, including syntax of our Bash love letters, and further ask the participants to create their own. So towards the end of the talk, we will also showcase what the participants have built. So Bash is very much related to the work of system administration, right? So system administrative work is highly related to one of the important roles in IT sector. So which is about maintaining, repairing, updating, and upgrading infrastructure. Right? Infrastructure contains a lot of things like routers, internet, but also servers. Right? So servers are usually found in data center like we see in this image. So what is Bash, right? So as mentioned before, Bash is a command line interface, like terminal. You need to write text, right? And a scripting language developed in the 1989 as a piece of free software. And it is the default shell for many Linux distribution, which is also available in Macintosh OS and also Windows. So Bash is the free version of previous shell, which have a long history, over 30 years. Starting off in the 90s at Bell's Lab in the US. So first they developed the Thomson shell in the 1971. And then in 76, which is called the Bond shell. And in the end 80s, the Bond shell was reverse engineered and released as a free software with the name, I think you can see the logo here, Born Again shell, also known as Bash. Right? So Bash interface with our machine through a terminal, text-based instruction with a keyboard, which is opposed to graphical user interface, which navigates the system with mouse click through program graphical windows that we commonly use now with Macintosh or with Windows, right? So because in Bash shell, we can elevate our user permissions to admin level. We can interact with the operation systems in ways that are not allowed from the graphical user interface. For example, access and edit system configuration files, look up hidden files, or hence we can understand the file system hierarchy and also modify our devices as we wish. So in that sense, we see a lot of limitation right now with the graphical user interface, right? And it is why Bash shell is commonly used for automating tasks for servers and computer systems in general, such as administrative and security maintenance. So here is an example of interacting with the file system through a terminal, referring to the image, like the first command, which is ls, ls alter, right? This is the command, how we pronounce it. So ls, which means list all files, including the hidden ones, ordered by the date. So you can see like the list of the files. And the list also, like the ls command stands for list, and ls commands takes a few options about how to list files, right? Just, you don't have to know in details, just to give you a sense of this is a bash script, this is how it looks like, and there's some sort of command that you have to enter in your terminal. Right? So, and this is an example of bash script that enables system backup. It is a series of command lines. You can see like different lines of code assembled together at one script. So again, you don't have to know details, but just to give you a sense of how a bash script look like. Right? So both software and servers need constant maintenance. It's not just only development, but you need maintenance, right? Security audits and upgrades. So here in the industry, it comes with the term called DevOps and infrastructure as code, which was introduced in the end 2000s as to give more development validation. So we kind of know in the IT sector, we have system development, or we have like software development. There's also this role called DevOps, right? So to give more development validation of operations work, which traditionally belong to system admin work, software such as Terraform and Ansible spins up virtual servers, containers, and deploy code by writing configuration files. So now I'm moving from bash script to infrastructure as code, right? So this example is for creating a test server with Ansible that automates server and software installation and configuration through a series of instructions written in actually several files. They basically instruct the server. So what this code is doing is they instruct the server to create a directory, create a user, give the user read permissions to a file and some other command lines to be executed. Right? So again, a sense of infrastructure as code. So we can observe here a divergence from the traditional system admin works, from command line interaction with the file system to DevOps, working with infrastructure as code, which enables the editing of configuration files, such as YAML and JSON files. So we saw an example of infrastructure as code before with Asymmetries. While the infrastructure as code enables scaling up, team reviews, speed of innovation, and cost efficiency. However, it introduced many more vulnerabilities identified in the template used for this type of working with the machine. So Cecile mentioned about feminist server. So we would also like to mention here the project Mara has been part of, and which I have followed closely and advocate for Sister Server, which is a feminist server for us queer and trans people running since mid-2000s. So in their work, they consider server maintenance as political, caring about relations that form around machines, and doing so with feminist pedagogies in learning together in safe spaces with free and open source software. So this is an image of their latest project, Feminist Federation, in the Women's Center of Barcelona, recycling older hardware for hosting a video platform. So with this project, Sister Server works towards strengthening communities to run their own infrastructure. So which is different from like we rely so much on like Microsoft Teams, 360 and so on, right? So they are appropriating the term federation from the Fediverse. Maybe some of you might be familiar with the term federation, such as like Mastodon, which is a decentralized and forced free and open source software network for social media. So in doing so, Sister Server and their allies emphasize the importance of autonomy and small-scale computing for artists and activists that are critically aware of their resources and how to publish content that is otherwise filtered in mainstream platforms, such as sex-positive video production. So here is an image of the currently setting up of an autonomous server in Berlin for the Broken House Porn Archive and community. So you can read more about the project and reflections accompanying it because it's just freshly launched in a peer review journal about. So the first link, or maybe you can search for Feminist Federation. I think you can see the article in details. So I'm now moving towards to the cloud, right? The ecosystem of the cloud. So up until now, we saw different ways of working with the machines, from command line to infrastructure as code. And now we are looking into the cloud infrastructure and the whole configuration tools, especially provided by Amazon in the form of dashboard. As we probably all know, Amazon has Amazon Web Service, AWS, right? These screenshots only captures a portion of, because there's so many pages about AWS and they have so many different systems. So, and I just only able to capture one thing in the slide, so I capture this one. So, which is a portions of AWS, like the headings, like infrastructure as code, configuration management, policy as code, right? But the point is, Amazon AWS promotes one-stop shop for coding, hosting, configuration, and management via a AMS registration account in the form of dashboard, from small scale to large enterprises. So in this way, Amazon is developing its empire. As described by Andrew Van Tim in his article, Amazon and Revelation 18, it is known that Amazon is more than a bookstore, a marketplace, a product company, a data center, and a technology company. Perhaps precisely a company that provides technological solutions and infrastructure as services. So specifically looking into AWS, what Van Tam described the aspect of vertical integration as part of being an empire. Amazon becomes the underlying infrastructure that commerce runs on regardless of any industry. Amazon aims is to occupy more than one single industry. So as we know, a lot of services are moving from software that is downloadable to something on the cloud, right? And other example like Adobe Creative Suite. So borrowing the term service culture in the book entitled No Software, Just Services in 2015, edited by Irina Kaldrick and Martina Leaker. So the software as service shapes subjectivities, commonalities, and working forms. So AWS is an empire with huge expansion of infrastructure, with their own ecosystem, their own vocabulary, their own way of asset usage. As such, it is difficult to use anything that is outside of this system. As both authors note, there is no software, there is just services. Describes this situation as a radical break with the previous epoch. Hardware, once objectivized as a physical computer, is becoming distributed across different data centers and dissolving completely into the infrastructures. And software, for its part, has to date controlled the spatial temporal materiality of hardware and offer up user interfaces, but it is dissolving in a cascade of services that organize access to data and its processing. So more specifically, in our topic, querying Bash, the specialization of system as administrative work has been shifted, or we can say even disappeared from doing Bash scripts and server configuration to navigate cloud's dashboard and its customized tools provided by Amazon. So in this way, Amazon software becomes cloud services, dominating both the interface and infrastructure in operating, maintaining, and updating servers. There is no software, just services. It's now normalized in big tech companies. First is the vendor login. It makes your business hardly operate outside of AMS ecosystem. Secondly, the cloud services become the only solution in the computing in market for both small and large-scale company. The so-called cloud computing becomes a unified approach for all scales of services. And thirdly, AMS developed many application programming interface, APIs, and tools for both vertical and also horizontal integration, end-to-end solution, which makes company and user hardly navigate the whole ecosystem. So in this way, many companies and users also highly depend on AWS, and in particular, it shaped the practice of system administrative works with the centralization of service and control, and ultimately and gradually, users lose their agency to develop their own tools and ways of maintaining system administrative works. And last point of this slide is that AWS is a profit-oriented company, which is based on expansionist and extractivist approaches to operate their business. They base on many free and open source tools and software to develop their empire, such as Amazon Linux operating system 2023. They have their own Linux operating system. Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, VPC, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, EC, that facilitate all vertical and horizontal integration of their services and infrastructure, as you can see from this image briefly. So vendor lock-in refers to a situation that makes their customer dependent on a vendor for products, unable to use another vendor without substantial switching costs. So this is an interface of Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud service that replaces a lot of existing system administrative works that have to work with command line and their own machines. So this screenshot I know is a little bit small. I don't expect you to know everything about this, but this is just to give you a sense, which is an interface of Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud service in the form of dashboard. And we see there is an abstraction of file system, which enforce their own terminology, which is different to the wider service ecosystem. Just to give you a few examples, like elastic IPs, security groups, that do not apply outside a specific corporate toolbox. And therefore, we would argue that it is not interoperable. This service and dashboard also condition how we access, know, organize system administrative work. It discourages customized toolbox, but use the AWS service as a standardized and unified approach. For Mara and I, as both queer coder, artists, software developers, we want to rethink our contemporary technological infrastructure that is dominated not only by oligopoly, the power that is retained in a few handful companies, but also white middle-class cisgender men. While Bash is very versatile, its ecosystem sorely lacks of diversity. This is a quote by artist Mariana Maragoni, who is one of our interviewees during our research in queering Bash. And she said, "This field is still a very hostile environment for anyone who isn't a white middle-class cisgender man, and it is not enough to advocate for gender equality only, as socio-economical background, transphobia, and anxiety are also big factors in determining who feels welcome in system admin and similar roles." So this is an image of a conference celebrating 50 years of Unix in 2019, just a few years back. So we think this is a kind of a visualization of a previous quote. So why querying Bash? Right? As you now started to see, we are interested in gender equality. We are interested in democratizing technology. We take Bash as an object of study, as a computational and cultural objects that help us to keep focus in understanding the planetary scale of infrastructure. It allows us to surface the problems, and in this case, which is about the marginalization of system administrative roles by vendor lock-in infrastructure. So by actually working in the area of system admin and doing Bash programmatically, it also allows us to understand the materiality of technology. For example, to reflect on how Bash is different from other programming languages. We also see querying Bash is a form of reflecting the normativity in tech. How is it being learned? How is it being used? And how it is displaced by vendor lock-in infrastructure oligopolies. We see querying is a necessary way of practicing Bash otherwise. So we did a workshop in the last spring to introduce this Bash programming language in the form of queer love poems, and a bit of the background with the aim of opening up spaces for doing things otherwise, highlighting issues of gender imbalance in system admin work, but also critiquing capitalistic logic. In the second part of our workshop, we asked the participants to create their own love letters in Bash. In the field of computing, in particular the history of queer computing, Jacob Gabriel highlights the history of computing always excludes the personal, the emotional, and the sexual aspects. Both Mara and I are interested in how technology facilitates tech cultural understanding, creates communities, and empower individuals where we can share struggles and desires together alongside coding or programming. System admin work is often invisible because it is regarded as back-end, who maintain and operate the servers up and running from behind. By doing computing otherwise and exploring our relationship with machines beyond profit-oriented and abstract interface, Queering Bash unveils power asymmetries and critiques on the prevailing norms of contemporary technology. And in what follow, we will showcase a collection of poems written in Bash, taking the form of love letters as a means of resilience. So during the workshop, we had given two examples for the participant to briefly walk through the basic Bash syntax and poems, because not everyone in the room actually know coding or Bash in particular. Of course, there are also some other participants who are really expert in Bash or in coding. But we asked the participants to generate their own Bash poems, and the remaining time I will just run each program. It's not a live coding. I just enter some command, I think. So the first one, programming by me, Winnie. Yeah, I better do this. The second one, Infinite Missing by Mara. 谢谢。And the third piece, designed endlessly by, the nickname is Tokenie, but it's Irene. So I need to have some interactive input. It says, do not press any key until prompt. Do you desire me?
Yes.
But tell me, how much do you desire me? Endlessly. So, and then the fourth one, Loving Bites by Nella. So, by what name does my lover go? I usually put Bash. You know. Bash, do you humbly enter to seek my blessing? In the name of my tender binary.
Here to ask for my blessings. To dive into the pools of my innermost shine. I kiss you softly. My dinner Bash. My savory lady.
So due to the time limit, I just briefly show it, but if you're interested, feel free to fork the repository and download or distribute, modify in your own. So another one is called The Distance Between Us by Mariana. So it needs a little bit adjust for this one on the screen. So if for some of you who might not able to read it at the back, it says there is a distance between us. I wish we could be together. Together at last. One more, the last one, Nomad by Cecile.
My land is my body, my home is my family, my nation is my sisterhoods, my freedom is my breath, breathe me. Alexa abstains and streams, that seethe and glee and rave, collecting smells, sounds, touches, from our boundless borders, conflating rivers, in becoming endless seas of pure wonder, sweetened us.
Okay.
We are infinite and untold, in our chaos, our falls, and failures, we fiercely swim counter-flow, flexible, and fallible, in the here and now, together we weave and drown, the echo of our endless tales of flames, and hope, listen.
So this is the end of the presentation, and thanks for everyone listening, and look forward to your questions.